Hello everyone, hope you are doing well, having a great time, staying at home and staying safe. So today we will start a new chapter, and we will talk about matter and energy. So this is class 5 science lesson, and let's start. Before we start today's lesson, I think it would be better for you guys to check your homework with me. And I have seen your homework. Good job guys and excellent. ئەو کەسانی کە هۆمۆرکەکانیان کرده بوو دەستیان خۆش بێ توان چێکیکەن لەگەڵما ئەوانشی کە نەیان کردووە ئەبێ محاولە بکەن لەگەڵما هەفتانە ڕۆژانە بیکەن بۆ ئەوەی تێبگەی لە بابەتەکان. Okay? So let's start. So this is a chapter review in page 226-227. As you can see, they gave us a few vocabulary with the words. These words, and we have a few blanks. You can fill those blanks with these words as usual. And let's start with the first one. So the first question says, space is the measure of the amount of matter in an object. Obviously, mass is the measure of amount of matter in an object. The second one is the volume. A volume is the amount of space that an object takes up. The third one, a substance, the ability to dissolve in is solubility. So your answer should be solubility. And the third one, I chose weight. Why? Because the question says that a measure of a pull of gravity on an object is, your answer should be weight. A weight is the measure of pull of gravity on an object. And fifth one, it says are properties that can be observed or measured without changing a substance into a new one. So no new substance are formed. What is that property? It's a physical property. So the next one is the amount of matter in a certain volume is density. Density is the amount of matter in a volume. Particle escape from non-boiling liquid. Non-boiling liquid and becomes gas during evaporation, as you can see. So evaporation, if you looked at the evaporation, it doesn't reach the boiling point. And melting is an example of, melting is a physical change. So it is an example of physical, yes, it is physical change. So, and the ninth one, rise is an example of chemical reaction. And the other word for chemical reaction is a chemical change. The last one is, space is anything that has mass and takes up space. What? It is a matter. Matter is anything that has mass and takes up space. So let's move to the check understanding. It's basically a multiple choice. So the first question says, which of the following is not a physical property of iron? Nail. So the first one is rust. The second one, B, better say B, it is shiny. C, it is bends. D, a solid. Now, C, D, and B, they are all property of iron nail. So, what is left? A, rust. Rust is not a physical property, it's a chemical property. That's why we chose rust. The second one is Ammanch weight 600 Newton and Kazan weighs 780 Newton. Ammanch's mass is, so option says A, more than, B, less than, C, the same as, D, unknown. So listen carefully. If Ammanch weighs 600 Newton, then it probably weighs about 61 kilogram, the mass. That's about Ammanch. And let's talk about Karzan. Karzan weighs 780 Newton. It is about 81 kilogram, or 80 kilogram to be more specific. So Aman's mass is less than Karzan's mass. Moving on to the third one. If a table salt mixed with water, it will form solution, because table salt dissolve in the water. That's why it will make a solution. Fourth one, a substance seems to completely fill a container. So you looked at the container, it is full of that thing. But more can be forced in. The substance is a solid. No, solid things, once you put them in a place, you cannot squeeze more. So it cannot be a solid. What about liquid? Liquid has a volume, so it needs it has a specific volume. It cannot be, you cannot squeeze things into it. And what is left? It is a gas. So it is a gas if you look at it. Okay, the fifth one says a liquid is usually space, a gas. Denser than, less denser than, the same density as, lighter than. Suitable answer for this question is A, which means that it is denser than. Moving on to the next question, it says nitrogen can be compressed and cooled into a liquid at a very low temperature. So nitrogen normally exists as gas. So your answer should be C. Next question says the melting point of a gold, which is a pure substance, 1064 Celsius. The freezing point of gold is A. Since it's a pure substance, the freezing point and melting point should be the same. The last question says the formation of a new substance indicate that chemical change has taken place. So it is a D. Let's start today's lesson with a question. What is energy? Since we are talking about energy, energy is the ability to do work and cause change. So whenever you do work and cause change, you use energy. Okay, all the daily activities need energy. If you want to throw a ball, you need energy. If you want to go and get something in a supermarket, and you need energy to go there, you need energy to push the grocery cart, and you also need energy whenever you run. Every task you do every day needs energy. So energy is the ability to do work or to cause change. This slide is all repeating the meaning of energy and the type of energy. In this lesson, you will learn about kinetic energy, which is, as you can see, the person on the bike, he is actually using kinetic energy. So as I said before, energy is the ability to do work. Energy is measured in joule, and just like work, there are multiple different kinds of energy. We have light, we have heat, we have chemical, we have electrical, we have kinetic. So kinetic energy is the energy of motion. بس يوم ما كركا energy أجبتو إيش بكي بيوسب energia أو energia ability to do work or cause change. اگر هج كاتب تشوبو سوبرماركت وبال بعربانا كو بي اوتو انرجي بكارنا و ايشا كت كردوا انجا باسي اوش مانكر كا kinetic energy چيا جوري جوازي energy معناه بونمونا heat معناه light معناه chemical energy معناه electrical معناه kinetic معناه. لسلايدي دهاتوا زيادة باسي kinetic energy يكين بلام استا بزانا كا kinetic energy is the energy of motion. As I said, the kinetic energy as a definition is the energy in motion or energy of moving object. You already know that everything everything around you, if it was gas, liquid or solid, it is made of particles. همو شتانی که لچوار دوتن gas بن liquid بن solid بن لچی پکاتون لparticle پکاتون. Now ام particleانا همویان هنیچان kinetic energy هنه. These small particles in matter always moving. تنان دقر solid يشبه أجولة بلام جولي زورنيا. One place to another at random. The particles in a solid jiggle back and forth like a ball on spring. اگر solid يشبه matter كم particle كاني أجولانه ولا شوي خوان وكو بالك كي بسبرينكو بدام لشوين خوان أجولانه. The particles of a liquid slide past each other. particle كان liquid سيريان كبتنش يكتريا slide بن يعني أخلص كان بتنش يكتريا. While the particles of the gas move quickly in many directions. بلان particle gas كان بهرشوا أجولان. So أجر سيري خواري سلايدك بكي low kinetic energy تشت matter كمترين energy هي kinetic energy ما بسم solid. Liquid لبينا now high kinetic energy goes to gas. Then we will talk about the thermal energy. What is the thermal energy? The kinetic energy of particles in matter is called thermal energy. So we feel the thermal energy of the particle in matter as heat. چون إما هستكين كparticle thermal energy هي دسيتيو بيجرمة بوا أزاني چيا أما kinetic particle كاني kinetic energy يعني thermal energy يعني. Okay, so water boils when the particles are moving so fast. كاتك أو أكله particle كاني زور بخيري أجولانه. What about freezing? What happens when a liquid water freezes? Its particles settle into an arrangement as solid. So whenever the liquid water freezes, the particle becomes, they arrange into a solid state and become solid. This slide basically tells you how whenever the temperature increases, the particles move faster and faster and faster. As you know, these three thermometers are in different degree. The first one doesn't move that fast. The second one is moving a little bit more faster. The third one is moving very, very fast because its temperature is very, very high. As the temperature increases, the movement of the particles also increase. As we said earlier, thermal energy is the kinetic energy of the particles of matter. So, as you can see in front of you, I gave you two containers. The first one with no heat added. So the temperature is a room temperature. The second one is when you add heat. So the temperature increase. So when a thermal energy of a substance increase, its particles move faster. So you can see the change in the particles movement. The first one, it is not moving that much. The first container, I mean. The second one, they are moving. Their particles are moving faster and faster and faster until they reach a state they're actually flying away from the surface of the water at 100 degrees Celsius at the boiling point. A change in a thermal energy can lead to change in a phase or state. So, for example, if you boiled a water into boiling point, it actually changed from liquid to gas. It changed its state. And that is the whole idea behind it. بسی thermal energy man كروت man kinetic energy particle كاني matter بيوته thermal energy بوتيش man كاتك thermal energy زياد بكي particle كاني matter تنوشك كاني matter مادة خيراتر رجولا حتى أجينا كش بوينتك ئیتر چیتر بە یەکتریەوە نانووسێن they fly off دوو دەکەونەوە لە یەکتری ئەبن بەچی اینجا شتێکی تر ئەگەر thermal energy زیاد بکەی لەوانەیە بێتە هۆی گۆڕانی دۆخی مادەکە لە لیکویدەوە بۆ گاز. So thermal energy can lead to change in state or phase. Just like you can see it right in front of you, it could change the phase of water from liquid to gas. Let me ask you another question. What is a temperature? Most people think that a temperature is measure of heat. Actually, temperature is measure of the average energy of motion of the particles. So the measure of the average energy of motion. You already know that particles are moving all the time. Particles of matter, I mean. Particles of matter are moving all the time. So the average energy of that movement is called temperature. So at 0 degrees Celsius, the particles of air move more slowly than they do at 27 degrees Celsius. Another thing you should know about temperature, you can measure temperature by observing how the volume of liquid change as it is heated or cooled. I have already showed you a type of thermometer. It is basically a tube, a glass tube, and inside of it there is a liquid in it. And you remember when we used hot boiling water and a freezing cold water, and the temperature changed. When the liquids get hotter, the volume change and it moves up the tube. When it gets cooler, they move back down the tube. We have done this experiment in the classroom, so I hope you remember. بالتالي روجي كان اكسبيرمنتك مان كرد ثرمومتر مان تيا بكارينا. ثرمومتر چيا؟ ثرمومتر لتيوبك بكاتو لناوكا شليكي تيا. بالتالي او روجي كا او گرمه كمان هنا لقل او ساردكا ثرمومتر كمان تيكرد شلكي ناي برزبو دا ابزي او بوچي برزبتو دا ابزي لبروي ليكويدكي تيا هچ كاتي گرمتره به فوليومكي اگوره اچه برو سرو اگر سارد بيت اگرتو خواري تيوبكا لا اكيد ملبيتانا. إسا معنى جوازي بيني temperature لقل thermal energy أبكين. Temperature چيا is the measure of average kinetic energy of individual particle of a substance. So measure of the average kinetic energy of individual particles of a substance. What about the thermal energy? Is a total energy of motion. Total energy of motion of a particles in a piece of matter. So a low temperature particles or milkshake سرد, low temperature particle have a low average kinetic energy. اگر temperature کی نزم به هر particle like temperature نزم به معنی چیه؟ معنی kinetic energy شی کما. It means that it actually have low average kinetic energy. What is average kinetic energy? It is the temperature. So low temperature particles have low average kinetic energy. What about high temperature particles? The hot chocolate have a high average kinetic energy, so it has high temperature. You already know that more matter means more particles. حتى ماترك زورتر بيه يعني particle زورتر. More particles equals more energy in motion. كاتا اگر particle كان زورتر بيه يعني energy motion يشه زورتر. So more particles equal more energy in motion. What was energy in motion? The total energy of motion is the thermal energy. Okay, let's do a quick experiment. By experiment اگه سری ابکن. اگر بلوپی ابکی تسر زوباك. يكسر نابه بحلم. يكسر به بحلم. اگر سطل ابکم از زوباك. يكسر به بحلم نه. کاتی کی زوری اوه بوی بگات boiling point. inja duay awa bibeba gas wanya change state ka. When a drop of cold water falls into a hot pan, the water boils away in a second or two. Its particles speed up and fly off. Little thermal energy is needed to warm the drop to 100 degrees. A pan full of water, cold water, has many more particles. So more particles it actually takes much more thermal energy to boil the water. So more water, more mass, have more thermal energy. Now I want you to look at your book in page 233. There is a picture. It is basically a cup and a thermometer. A water in this cup is the same temperature as a nearly boiling water in a hot spring. But the water in the spring has more thermal energy. أو كلنا a hot spring thermal energy زورترا. Why? Because it has more water and therefore more moving particles of matter. لبري آوك لناو سبرين كابه لناو سبرين آوك يزوتيت يا آوك لناو كوبيكا بويا يعني particle أو لناو سبرين كا زورتنا ويعني more moving particles in matter. That's why it has more thermal energy. Let us talk about thermal energy. What happens what is the main source of the thermal energy? Thermal energy chia fuel. Why? Because whenever something burns, it gets hot, and burning release thermal energy and light. What is fuel? Anything that can burn is called fuel. Hashtag بسوتين PUT fuel. Basha fuel, any material that can burn is called fuel, as I said. Wood was the first fuel people used. Dar yakam fuel waka khalq bakariya now. Now, these days, we use oil, we use natural gas, we use fossil fuel. Now, you will have to know many fuel contain carbon. Fuel, oil, and natural gas both contain carbon. Much of the thermal energy people use today comes from burning fuels that contain carbon. Okay, what happens when a fuel burns? Well, most fuel contain carbon, as I said. زور fuel can carbon based يعني كربوني أنتيا. This carbon combines with the oxygen. Carboni now fuel can لقل oxygen أكتريجرن. Oxygeni هوا ما بسمان. A new substance form. This substance called carbon dioxide. Substance ki taze duse bet PUT carbon dioxide. Now carbon dioxide بكارين للان plant كان أبو أوي photosynthesis بيوكن. فودي خواني بيدروس كان. You know that the sun is a source of energy on earth. يكم source energy لسر earth sana. Even a thermal energy in fossil fuels such as coal, oil comes from the sun. تنانت fossil fuel كانيش يوكو coal ووكو oil وأمانة source كان actually the sun. So these fossil fuel store energy from plants and animals that lived long ago. What happened is that the plants use the sun's energy to make food in a process of that called photosynthesis. You know that. And the animals got their energy by eating plants. You know, herbivorous animal, they eat plant and or by eating other animal that ate plant. So basically everything goes back to the main source of energy, which is the sun. Now let's talk about the solar energy, the energy given off by the sun. The solar energy is the energy that given off by sun. People use this energy for many things. For example, they heat their water by solar energy. They put a solar panel on the top of their roof, and this is a type of clean energy, by the way. The solar panels absorb solar radiation. The radiation heats water that flows through the panel. The hot water can be used for washing, for anything that you want. So basically, we can use the sun's energy to heat water. أتوانين solar energy بكاربينين بقوي أو قرم كين. Finally, thank you for your attention, and your homework will be the review in page 235. Try to answer those questions, because answering those questions will help you to understand more and more about today's lesson. And also, I have seen your homework. أفرين بقاني كجواب يا نابو. Good job. And أوان شيكا نان كدوم حاولا كان بيكن. هروها أجر شكه هيك كغلط كذبه سرتاي درس كان جوابي راهناني بيشوتر ما ناوتو. So checky كلا قلما. And good luck.